Hey everybody, welcome to Hobby Hotline episode number 45. Um, Great to join you today. Also have Jeremy. Sir, how are you?
Good, Val. Thanks for having me today. It's looking forward to a good show.
Yeah, and someone who needs no introduction, Dr. Jim Beckett.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, what a crazy week. What an eventful week in the hobby. We can start with, let's see. One of the things I was, well, One of the things I always want to talk about, since Dr. Beckett was here, and I talked to Jeremy a little bit about it, a little bit. I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, but with PSA going private, the one thing that I thought was interesting, I don't think anybody's really talked about it, was no more financial reports, the 10Qs, 10Ks, and the 8Ks, which, if you're not a business type person, kind of is the peek behind the covers. I don't know what you guys think about that. With that loss of that insight, or is that a good thing?
I mean, I just think that we don't get it for any other company in the hobby. So is it really something we need or as a hobby, or is it just something that we had that we were fortunate to have for a while? And to be honest, someone myself who's been collecting graded cards for decades, and it's not anything that I've ever gone to look at before. Not to say there's no use for it or that other people wouldn't find use out of it and that the hobby wouldn't enjoy some of that information, but it doesn't bother me whatsoever. I think that the trade-off here, I think the benefits will much outweigh any negatives from this in terms of what you're raising, Val. Those are my thoughts. I think we're much better off the way things are going to move forward.
Well, Val, good question. I basically used to own Collectors Universe stock back in the early days just for that reason, to get, but it wasn't much of a peek under the covers. And frankly, it's one of the first bumps that Nat Turner's going to pick up if this deal is consummated, is to pick up $1, $2, $3 million that falls to the bottom line because of not having that regulatory stuff to go through. So that's some easy money to save on not having to do all that regulatory stuff, which you articulated well.
Actually, I didn't think about that. You're right. Working for a public company, you have the Sarbanes-Oxley as well as compliance to the SEC and stuff. You're right. So there is a little extra overhead, or a lot of extra overhead for that.
Little to the tune of a few $1 million. I mean, it's more than $1 million, 1, 2, 3 million. I don't know how much it is, but it's probably in that range. And that's when you're, I don't know that Nat and the buying group was valuing it based on price to earnings or future price to earnings. I'm sure they were in some sense, but like I said, that's $1, 2, $3 million that falls straight to the bottom line. That you put a multiple on that, it could be worth $100 million to them right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And what they can do with that money versus going to lawyers and accountants, it can do a lot of things to help the business, benefit all of us who want their services. So yeah, that great point.
Yeah, I guess some of the things that I liked were, knowing how many cards were being graded, and that I'm on the set registry, so I attend the PSA set luncheons at the National, but they would talk about number of cards they were grading per quarter or per month, and as well as some of the other advances that were coming. So I don't doubt the new group will do very well, and maybe hopefully help with that investment capital, help the process, or speed things up a little bit as much as they can.
Yeah, you got to think so.
Well, there's another factor, just that, if you're a public company, you got to be careful in what you say, but you want to be like sort of optimistic without overpromising. Whereas if you're a private company, you say, we're doing okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they could be raking in the cash, and they're like, well, we're just getting by. So
Well, they are raking in the cash because depending on the accounting, the generally accepted accounting principles, they get the money in the cards way up front. This backlog, they have the money. And where they recognize that revenue, I mean, there are many large businesses that have had the luxury of kind of deciding which quarter they want to put their revenue in to affect their stock price. So again, PSA, Collectors Universe, be bypassing all that, and all of my friends that are CEOs or board members of public companies, they prefer to be private. But it just, for some entities, it's just better to be public because of what you can do. But private is a lot less hassle.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I work for a public company, and I can attest to the amount we spend on professional fees could be going into investing in our people, our brand, our process, other things. But instead, those dollars have to leave the door. And to be private, yeah, you have much more flexibility. I believe you much more nimble and less red tape to go through with everything. So I'm with you on that. But overall, I think the transaction is one that that will benefit the hobby. That's my feeling about the whole thing, for sure.
That's good. One of the things I was going to say is that we have the link in the chat if you want to join the show, and I've got some giveaways today for some new callers. Got some hobby packs, not retail packs, of 2020 NFL rookie and stars, as well as a few NASCAR trading cards autographed with relic. So for some callers, so that if you'll hop on the link and come on the show, if you have a question, say hi to everybody, or for a question for any of us. But let's see what other any other things that pop out for you guys for this week.
Yeah, man. It was a big week. It was a big couple nights. The last couple nights, the Mile High auction, the Heritage auction, the Wayne. I mean, I'm a hockey guy. I'm an all sports guy and even some non. But for me, hockey's number one. Jim's nodding. He knows that. And these two Wayne Gretzky PSA 10s that sold late Thursday night, very early Friday morning. The O-Pee-Chee copy, the Topps copy. These broke records. They smashed records. And I know we're in a time right now where we're smashing records regularly, but to see the hockey cards sell for what they did, the O-Pee-Chee sold for, I think it was I have it here from my show last night. It was like 1.26 million. And then the Topps copy sold for 910, I believe it was. Or no, it was 720. I'm thinking Canadian dollars, 700 and something US. Yes. And so I mean, that's a big deal. But one of the key little data points that I noticed going into the final day of the auctions was that you could go to Heritage and you could see how many people were tracking each auction. Like your eBay watch list, there's a Heritage tracking list. And both of the Wayne Gretzky cards had more people following them than the Michael Jordan PMG green did, which made me, this is probably the most important Michael Jordan card in the hobby. And it was trailing both Wayne Gretzky PSA 10 rookie cards in terms of how many people were tracking it. I just loved it. I thought that was really cool as far as hockey goes, because and as a hockey guy and an ambassador for the hockey hobby, the hockey segment within our hobby, people always mention, oh yeah, they'll put in on their logo or wherever they are, it's always baseball, football, basketball, maybe soccer now, maybe a little bit of soccer, but hockey is kind of like the forgotten redheaded stepchild, it seems like, in the hobby. And it's unfortunate because it's such an exciting sport, dynamic action on the ice, players with personalities, accessible players, and for the most part. And so I was just very proud of the hobby, I guess you could say, for focusing and putting attention on these two hockey cards and the publicity that it will bring the hockey segment and in mainstream media, which we saw. The dollar, I saw someone say that the one the O-Pee-Chee copy that went for more was the 6th or 7th highest selling sports card of all time. I think they meant unique though, because we've seen there's a few cards that beat it that have sold multiple times for more money. But if you look at the absolute amount of cards that have sold, for big dollars over the past in our history, the Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie card is now 6th or 7th on the list, behind, of course, Honus Wagner, Mickey Mantle, the Mike Trout, and the basketball cards that have sold. So that's big. That's big. Like we on my channel last night, we did a 2.5 hour episode live stream, and we had very strong viewership last night talking about this, among other things. But that's big news. So that's coming from a hockey guy. You can see how excited I am about it. I'm curious to know what your guys' perception, and people in the chat and viewing, what's all your perception on hockey cards? Does it change at all now? And a big thing we talked about was, what does it mean for all the other hockey cards out there that are like other Hall of Famers, top tier Hall of Famers, modern players? And is it going to bring anyone new into the hockey segment? I mean, lots of questions follow up from there. I'm sorry for the triple barreled question, but
no, Jeremy, thank you for we have a special episode of Hockey Hotline today. Let me just comment on the two Gretzkys, because to me the O-Pee-Chee is in that condition is more than twice as rare and twice as valuable as the tops. The tops, shorter set, easier to get out of a box. The O-Pee-Chee, I think much tougher in rough cuts, and how that gets a 10. I know we struggled with that in the early days of BGS, that the normal cut of an O-Pee-Chee card is hard to get the edges to a 9 or a 10 in the normal cut. So do you agree, Jeremy? The O-Pee-Chee, to me, that's where I'd spend the money. It's very pricey, but in a hobby that's looking increasingly at ratios, I would say the O-Pee-Chee rookie should be more than twice as valuable.
So, Jim, you raised some interesting points, and I did some stats. I found some stats on this for the episode I did last night, and so the general understanding has always been that the O-Pee-Chee copy is much rarer, much scarcer than the Topps copy. Never mind condition, I'll come to that. But in terms of just the overall scarcity, O-Pee-Chee is tougher to find. And how do we know? The reason we don't know for sure, I don't think we know. I think it's generally accepted that because Topps was distributed in the United States, which is such a larger population than Canada, that there was many more produced. And in Canada, of course, O-Pee-Chee was produced and distributed only in Canada. So there's fewer, just a smaller population to service. But when you look at the population reports on both PSA and Beckett's website, it tells a different story, Jim. And this is what I think is interesting, and you might find this to be insightful as well. So I'll quickly reel this off. PSA has graded a total of 6,688 copies of the O-Pee-Chee card, whereas they've graded 7,108 copies of the Topps card. So that's a difference of 450 only, which is, just under a 10% difference, where we seem to, the perception is that, the Topps, it outnumbers the O-Pee-Chee 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1. But as far as what's been graded, it's extremely close. So that's the first thing. And Beckett's population, it goes the other way, Jim. This surprised me. Beckett has only graded 3,860 copies of the O-Pee-Chee, where they've graded 3,696 copies of the Topps, which is fewer. So if you put the populations together, you come very close to being equal. And the high grade results, the rate of 9s, 9.5s, 10s is very similar. We have a population of 2 PSA 10s on the O-Pee-Chee and 2 PSA 10s on the top. So the amount of both O-Pee-Chee and Topps to achieve a 9 or higher with PSA it's very similar because you got 2 PSA 10 O-Pee-Chees and 89 nines. That's a 1.3% rate of getting a 9 or higher for O-Pee-Chee. And for Tops, you got 2 PSA 10s and 127 nines. That's a 1.75% chance. Sorry, a 1.8% chance of getting a 9 or better in the Tops. So they're actually very similar, Jim, which makes me now believe that the Tops card is undervalued compared to the O-Pee-Chee because of the hard fact. Now, I understand population reports aren't accurate, but that's the best data we have, I think, to describe the population of the O-Pee-Chee versus the Tops. Does that all make sense to you? Like,
well, you're trying to give empirical results, and the data that you have is accurate. I think it's not the full story. I do know back in the day, if you go way back, there was a lot of controversy in the way our company, BGS, was grading those particular cards. And so I think the really savvy submitters were trying to figure out where they should submit their Gretzky cards, Tops or O-Pee-Chee, but especially O-Pee-Chee. So I could see a difference between BGS and PSA just on that. But I really don't, I can't go down the angle of pop reports being perfectly correlated or strongly correlated always with the original production. I still, my eyeballs tell me that there's a lot more ungraded. I mean, hockey was the last sport to me, especially in the vintage area, to really move more aggressively into grading. And I think 79-80, that's borderline vintage hockey. So I believe the Tops were produced more than O-Pee-Chee that year. And I'm not saying 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1, but I think 2 to 1. I think all those other years of hockey in the late 70s, the Tops are twice as plentiful. Why should I expect that 79-80 would be different? So I think your story is right. I think it's just not. I think there's more to the story.
I think you're right. I can't disagree because it's been, first of all, I don't know the numbers, the production numbers, and that's been my general understanding for 40 years. But the next step in the discussion to me is what actually matters, because everybody in our hobby now, grading is king, and everybody looks at population reports more than they look at how many are out there, and whatever is out there that isn't yet graded. See, this is an interesting thought experiment for me, is how far along is the hobby to going completely graded? I don't mean every single card, commons and all that, but a Wayne Gretzky rookie, how many of them that are ever going to get graded are already graded? Because it's the population report that drives the values, not the total amount of copies that are out there, because that's, as you said, it's empirical and it's available. It's public domain. So I wonder that with these sales and the attention now, how many more are going to come out of the woodwork, get submitted, graded, hit those population reports, and how much will that delta between the two grow to better represent the actual production numbers is I think an important question, but one that we don't really have the answer to at this point. We may in 4 to 5 years.
No, you guys were talking about that. I was thinking about like the O-Pee-Chee versus Tops. Now, Jeremy, I know you guys talked about it last night on your show, but when I think of O-Pee-Chee, I think of the rough cuts and it harder to get a 10 out of a pack as opposed to, the Tops where they're cutting, was a little bit better, or they had a better process of manufacturing and cutting those sheets as opposed to O-Pee-Chee, where I think you were talking last night, where the O-Pee-Chee people would get bonuses for the number that they sold, and then they put I always was told that they used wire to cut the sheets, and when those wires got dull, those the cards started ripping and stuff. So
well, we had so I had on the show with me last night Bobby Burrell, and he's a gentleman who's kind of written the book, literally written the book on vintage hockey collecting and all that. And he had a picture that I put up on my screen actually showing the O-Pee-Chee factory. It was a picture from 1971, I think he said. and he's in touch with the old owners of the company and that. So he's got great information. And we saw a picture of these people, this lady in the O-Pee-Chee factory in the early 70s, actually using the machine to cut the cards. And you could see just how, it's not the highest quality picture, but you could still see just how archaic the process was back then compared to what I'm sure it is now. So, but the fact is, they were cut with wires, and the wires were not sharpened. And if they would, and the staff was incentivized to produce more cards to hit their bonus. And so they would put more sheets under the wire blade than maybe the wire blade could handle. It would cut through and it would rip the edge a little bit as it went through. So the thing about the hobby is that that rough edge has become sort of something that people want now. It's an attractive feature, and I believe that PSA doesn't penalize for it, right or wrong. I know it's a very polarizing approach, but you can find very high grade cards with a really bad edge, and it's because it's like, well, that's how it was produced, which I'm on the fence on that one myself, but I like it that way. I want a card that reflects the time and the history and the technology and what was happening. So yeah, but interesting comment, Value. You raise a good point. Yeah,
Jeremy, two things. One is that you got this situation where the rough cut aspect is counterfeit proof. Yeah. I don't think you can counterfeit that. The challenge we had back 20 years ago in the beginning of the BGS was, if we graded the rough cut version, which was the legit in the pack version, harshly, and then we'd get a submission of a clean cut, which was obviously cut from a sheet, then there's that dilemma, and that was, it will never please all the people all the time on that.
Yeah, when you say
perfectly clean one, it had to come from a sheet, and there were some sheets of that available.
Yeah, so a couple things on that, if I may. So we learned last night that around Christmas time in the O-Pee-Chee factory, or on your birthday, I think it was, you were allowed to take home a sheet of cards for yourself as a present from the company. So that's one of the reasons why there's uncut sheets out there. Jim, when you use the term sheet cut, see, I don't like that term so much, and it's the hobby vernacular. I don't like it because all cards are sheet cut at one time. So the way I think about it is, was it pack pulled or was it not pack pulled? Because if it was sheet cut, to me, that means by somebody other than the manufacturer at a later date using different technology, using a different technology or a different process. So as a purist, as somewhat of a purist in the hobby, I want my cards to be pack pulled. I have zero interest in a card that was cut out later on, years, decades later. And so I think that's how a lot of people feel. And we do, the hobby's aware that PSA will not grade a card that was not pack pulled, in terms of this 79A, the Gretzky, because I can't speak about everything, but I know that as far as the Gretzky, they only want to slab a card that was pack pulled, that wasn't sheet cut by different technology. Whereas early on, Beckett Grading Services, and this came from Jeremy Murray, the VP of Grading, mentioned on my show several months ago that they made that decision early, that it's still a legitimate card to me. It is it was printed by O-Pee-Chee in the day. It was just cut later, so the card itself is authentic, but it didn't follow. It doesn't have the history that I want in my collection, which is I want pack pulled cards for whatever reason. I don't even know if I could articulate why, but I do.
Well, I agree with you, and that discussion was had many years ago. But the other thing that's one more nuance to that is when they're not pack pulled, and all cards came from a sheet. I grant you that. Of the cards that are cut from sheets, some are professionally cut and some are not professionally cut. So if you're talking about a pair of scissors, I think that's maybe authentic, but it's kind of altered. But if it was professionally cut, again, if it was professionally cut in the same manner that the original cards were cut, but nobody's going to go back to the wire. They're not going to go back to the wire. So yeah, it's very tricky. And that's one of the reasons why I think the just the number of Gretzky rookies graded there's a little bit of anomaly there.
Yeah, agree. I
Well,
see someone in the chat said, what was the comment? Oh gosh, I don't want to waste a lot of time looking for it.
was it from Logan?
I was Logan Logan Ward, I believe, made a comment, but I'm looking. I don't want to waste too much time looking for it.
He
So.
has one about where the grading companies take rough
Yeah.
cuts into consideration, and
yeah.
I know that, but I guess what I should have expanded on a little bit was when you use the wire. If there is no corner, then it's hard to with the wire
ignore it.
using that technology. Yeah, so like I had I guess a lot of 80, 81 O-Pee-Chees hockey, and some of them, they're kind of missing corners, so I couldn't send them in to get graded.
Right.
They had the rough cut on the side, but they're missing a corner.
As far as the edge goes, the edges, I won't speak to the corners, but the edges, I mean, I just disagree with his comment that the grading companies take the rough cut into consideration while grading. I mean, of course they see it because the card's right in front of them under magnification, but I mean, you can look at many PSA 8s, PSA 9 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky's, and they've got rough edges, and they're in 9 holders and they're in 8 holders. So, I mean, I don't know that the rest of the card that's magnificent that it outweighs a rough cut edge. So, as far as PSA goes, I don't think that they do. From what I've seen, I don't know. I'd like to know where Logan bases that information from. As far as Beckett goes, I've seen pretty rough cut 7s, 8s as well in Beckett holders that if that was a modern day card would be down at the 4 or 5 level. And I can't speak to SGC or any other company. So, but I don't think they really, I think they give it a pass because I think that's kind of what the hobby accepts. But I don't know. I'm not saying it's right. I mean, a card, what is gem mint? That's a big question.
Well, again, these discussions have been gone around and come around, and that's why there's several grading companies, because they can each do it the way they want to, and the marketplace can determine what they agree with. But Beckett grading has an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time with their report card. But most people would agree that centering is probably the number one thing, and then corners is probably the number 2 thing, and surface to me is probably number 3 thing, and edges are the 4th. And the way you determine whether edges are original or legit is more by sight and by feel. And I'll tell you, Jeremy, if you had any kind of O-Pee-Chee card, and if it had 3 rough edges and 1 smooth one, and happened to be perfectly centered, you'd figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so, but BGS is the main one that it kind of identifies that particular type of flaw, that there's a problem with the edges.
Yeah, I agree. I hear you. I like that, sort of off a different topic. I just saw this comment from Mark Hoyle. No way that Gretzky is a 10. He says, and this is something that I just kind of I'm done with that discussion. I mean, that discussion on this card has been around since that card got into the public domain. Every time it's up for sale, you hear it, no way. And even when it's not for sale, people love to pick on the card. And I'm not saying it's not warranted, but at the end of the day, I'm now at a point where does it even we know, but who cares? It's unfortunately, for better or for worse, the card is in the PSA 10 holder. And that's what matters right now to all the new, it's called the new money coming into the hobby. I asked Ken Golden straight out when he was on my show, I said, does this new money care about the card, or do they care about the holder and the grade? And he said they care about the grade. So it doesn't matter that it's not a 10. It's in the 10 holder, and that's all that matters right now. And that's why the card gets the money. So Mark Hoyle's comment is one that I'm just, no offense, I'm tired of seeing it at this point, because I think everyone, we know it. Do we have to keep on rehashing the same thing. It's important to educate new people. There's always new people coming in, so I get it, and I'm not picking on Mark or anybody on that, but it's just like, oh, not again, not again.
Jeremy, the new money coming in, they want bragging rights, and they want to be able to say, and they can say with this Gretzky card, it's the best one, or maybe tied for the best one that PSA has seen out of the millions and millions of cards that PSA has graded. They've put a 10 on it, and that's kind of end of story in the eyes of these people that are paying. They have 1.29 million reasons for voting with their dollars. And so, it's like, and you compared it to the PMG Green Jordan. I don't even think that got a numerical grade.
Yeah, no, it didn't. You're right. It was just
altered, and I don't know what the alteration was, with a little coloring or a little shaving of something. But think of that. That's an altered card.
Yeah.
That is so rare that people are excited to the tune of $900,000 or whatever it went for in their collection, and find a better one that's for sale.
Well, exactly. So 3B Collection makes a very unfair comment. He says, so now a 10 doesn't have to be a 10 now, question mark. Got it. As if saying, 3B, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Like, don't mix my words. All right. I don't appreciate that at all. That's not what I'm saying. But it's the fact that the hobby generally, a segment of the hobby generally, doesn't care. They want to buy. They care about the grade, not the card inside. So Jim said earlier that it's one of, or tied for one of the two nicest copies that PSA has seen. A lot of people are going to say, well, this 9 is nicer. Here's an 8 that's nicer. Look at them, especially people who grade cards over the internet on Facebook images. They'll say this one's nicer than that one, and it might be the case because grading is human and it's not perfect. So there may be nicer ones out there, and that's subjective. And I'm not saying that the one that's in the holder is the nicest copy, or that it deserves to be a 10, or that it doesn't deserve to be a 10. I'm not a professional grader. All I'm saying is that with that particular card, it doesn't, let's say the investors that are coming in now that are driving up some of these prices, and even some that have been in for a while, there's a segment of the hobby that doesn't care about anything but the grade on the holder. And that's why I said it doesn't even matter that the card may not be a 10 if it were regraded today. I'm not saying a 10 doesn't need to be a 10, so don't say got it after that.
Yeah, I'm on the PSA boards. I've been collecting PSA for a while. They're saying is always you buy the card, not the holder. That's kind of the old school. But to your point, Jeremy, there's new folks coming in, and the people bidding this up. The images are there to see, and one of the other things I was going to say, is the fractional share market helping drive some of this up. Because a lot of these, like the LeBron, and there was another one too, right? That went for over, I think LeBron was what, 3 mil? The number escapes me, but they ended up showing up on the fractional share market. So are these people, bidding this up, and then it's going to be on the fractional share market?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the speculation. Is that we talked about that last night on my show. We talked about any speculation on who the buyer of this card is, and myself and Karn, who were on the show, we kind of mentioned we feel that it might be a fractional ownership company. Bobby, who was on the show, doesn't believe it is. I don't know why, but hey, it doesn't matter why. But so interesting, and I think we'll find out. You got to think we're going to find out in due course who bought one or both of these Gretzky rookies.
Yeah, unless it was Wayne himself, it's going to show up somewhere.
I wonder if it was the new leader of the company who bought it so that he could maybe rectify things, but I doubt it.
Well, that's true too. I know PSA has purchased cards back that they felt that had gotten into holders maybe they shouldn't have. if they make a mistake, this has been years ago, but there was a NASCAR card that was obviously wrong or whatever, and after pointing it out to them, it eventually disappeared. So, but you're talking about hockey being a low collector. NASCAR's, if you're a redheaded stepchild, we're like Harry Potter in the closet under the stairs. So,
yeah. Well, I see Ziggy wants to talk about the new StarStock investment.
Well, that's another one. They've got the seed round of money. What was the tune?
1.3 million.
1.3 million, yeah, from Kevin Durant, as well as a pair of FanDuel co-founders, and I believe that's
and Gary V's brother.
Yeah, AJ and Jeremy Levine. So I haven't been out to the StarStock website since, I guess it was last year, that Topps had that offering of it was like one box. It was one new card, and it was, I believe, graded, and then there was a 5-pack, whatever you bid on. So it's been a while, and I went out there today, and of course, there's no hockey or NASCAR, but they do have baseball, basketball, football, and soccer. And it reminds me a lot, I guess, like, was it E-Tops where, they had kind of like trading, buy and sell?
Yeah, E-Tops was a program in the early 2000s where you'd buy singles from the Topps website, and you could leave them there in your portfolio, but you could choose to take delivery of them if you wanted to. And the way that they were traded between collectors was that there was a direct link between E-Tops and eBay at the time. So the market was facilitated on eBay, but you could still see, you'd log into your account on Topps website, and if you wanted to sell a card, you could sell it via eBay through the Topps website, through their the integration they had set up at the time, which was at the time was pretty cool. I mean, nowadays you've got Upper Deck working directly with ComC on their ePack product, and it's way slicker now, but it was pretty slick back in 2000, 2001, 2002. I was very active in the E-Tops marketplace back in those early days, so I remember it well. I actually took delivery because it finished. And I had every hockey card. They did 3 years of hockey, and I took delivery of each and every hockey card that was made. They're worth peanuts now, but it represents a time for me in the hobby, so I keep them.
There's some NASCAR. I think it was in 2003 they did some NASCAR. I have not gotten those yet, but they are on my list to try to acquire a set of those. But maybe they were ahead of their time. I don't know, or they were just limited to the Topps. But the StarStock, looking at it, it looks, I don't want to say day trading, but basically, you can buy and sell.
Well, that's what it is, Val.
And stuff. So it's.
I think that's what it is. They have I know Ziggy. Ziggy's very active on it. He's a big proponent of it. They have this new tournament, I believe. It's some sort of contest with 12 or 13, probably 12 participants that I think were hand selected. And Ziggy lobbied to get on and got one of these coveted spots. And it's basically who can make the most money on the platform over a specified amount of time. And it is basically, I believe it's very similar to day trading. So it's interesting. I think that the question that Ziggy and others want to know about is, like, what does it mean for the hobby and for StarStock to get a couple of names like Kevin Durant and any Vaynerchuk involved in investing in their business? What does that mean? What sort of attention will it bring? And before we went live this morning, even before Jim joined us backstage, I made the comment to Val that as far as KD goes, it's cool, but those headlines are going to disappear because he's going to get back to playing basketball. But as far as Vaynerchuk goes, I believe it's AJ Vaynerchuk, who's Gary's brother. There's marketing power and marketing clout behind the Vaynerchuk name, and I think that's where StarStock is going to realize their biggest value. I mean, having KD in the background talking all to his fellow professional athletes in the locker rooms, and when they talk to each other, and maybe talking about his investment might bring more attention within the professional athlete realm towards trading cards themselves because of his investment in StarStock. Who knows for sure, but that's possible. I still think that the Vaynerchuk name attached to it is much more powerful for the brand and for the hobby than and it puts the Vaynerchuks right into it now, right? They've got financial interest in the infrastructure within a piece of the infrastructure within the hobby versus just buying and selling cards or versus just collecting. So I think it's a great thing, and I hope it helps elevate the profile of the hobby on a wider perspective. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, Jeremy, I've made a similar point back in one of my podcasts when I talked about StarStock, is that if StarStock really works, then the smart money would not be investing in StarStock's offerings as much as they'd be investing in StarStock itself. And so to me, it's a ratification of the whole hobby for KD and AJ to get involved with StarStock, the parent, rather than buying getting into some of the action there. These fractional companies, same thing. The people that, if it works, the people that are going to make the most money are not the people that bought a fractional share. It's the people that own the company. So KD and AJ coming in, again, I think it's more positive than them having publicity of buying a card.
Yeah, I like how you said that the owners of the company are going to be the ones making the money, and the people playing within the format, playing and conducting transactions. I like that comment. My mind, when you said that, Jim, directly went to the whole players versus owners, controversies and labor disputes we've had over the years. Like, who deserves to make money in all this stuff? And it seems to me like the hobby often looks down upon any company making money. You hear greed all the time. You hear cash grab, money grab. You hear people throwing those slurs towards the companies in the hobby. And I believe that the companies deserve to make money, but just like the owners deserve to make money of teams. But how is the pie divided? And the only way to divide the pie with a company like a StarStock or a ComC or an eBay is through the fees. What are the fees that are levied upon the players? Because that directly takes money away from the players or the collectors, the participants, and puts it in the pockets of the team owners or the shareholders of the company. And it's a fine line that these guys play.
No, but the fractional especially is almost a form of pari-mutuel betting, in that when you go to Vegas, 100 cents go into Vegas and 94 cents come out, or whatever it is, which depends on what the game you're playing. But in all of them, you would expect to lose 6%. Some people win, most people lose. In the fractional game, it is wired from the beginning that the company that does the fractional is putting a value on that, so that they've made money already. They're going to make some additional money with the fees. So, like I said, if it works, I would have wanted to be participating at that level.
The
owner has risk, and the owner's it's like a general partner and a limited partner, the entity. I mean, the people that started these things, they could go on, they could lose.
I agree. I think and I like your Vegas analysis, Jim. I believe the difference is simply one of scale, where 6% in Vegas is trillions of dollars or hundreds of billions, whereas whatever we're seeing in the fractionals, and I don't know their business model, but it's very the scale is so much smaller for now. So
well, not only the scale, but the illiquidity. The lack of liquidity is being used to their advantage. And the lack of liquidity, until recently, was most concerning with the most valuable cards. But now the most valuable cards have amazing liquidity because of these fractional ownership situations, where they actually have an advantage for buying something at a world record price.
Yeah. And world record prices are very important for our hobby. Without world record prices, values stay stagnant. So in a way, it's if you're holding a nice portfolio of a collection, which I know I'm mixing investor collector terminology there deliberately, then you like this. If you're someone who's just getting in and you want to acquire a whole bunch of cards for your collection, you're getting priced out of a lot of good stuff, which might help rising tide floats all boats. You may be seeing the lower end stuff. We had the discussion last night on a Sidney Crosby card, for example. You may be priced out of the Cup or the SP Authentic and even the Young Guns, but there's MVP, Victory, there's other options there. So maybe I think the whole hobby benefits from the increased values or the market capitalization of the overall hobby, which is a monster number right now.
Yeah, it's larger than many countries.
Yeah. Yeah, you can look at. You can look at Card Ladder, and they don't have all the cards in their hobby in their database, but they do have a bunch, and they'll show you what the market cap of the cards in their database is. And I looked at it the other day, and it was like 5 billion or something like that, which is for under 6,000 cards. So it was a big number.
Yeah. No, Dr. Beckett, I think you're definitely right there. Wanting to be kind of the owner. I mean, just imagine, getting in the early days of eBay. So, if you have a high-end card, you're going to either try to sell on eBay or maybe check out my cards and now the StarStock. So, I do some of the smaller stuff, I guess, on checking my cards because they have NASCAR. But, as StarStock with this investment and with these names as publicity and stuff, if you can get into ownership and just like you say, get pennies on the dollar, and these are large cards being sold, it's going to be a massive return for the owners of this. So I think it's a very smart investment, as well as having the sports figures in there and kind of bring some of that publicity to StarStock. So, but it looks like we have somebody here waiting in the wings here. Let's add Brad.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Brad.
I have a quick question, and I was going to type it, but I thought, might as well jump in. So, I don't know, beginning of COVID pandemic, everybody was on the against Gary V bandwagon. So now that we have a V involved into StarStock, does that stir up within the hobby purists a backlash? Does that now say, who is this guy? What is this V doing? Why is he entering? Is there that I haven't seen it. I haven't read it. As a matter of fact, I just thought about it while y'all were talking about it. But does that backlash, and then you're now bringing in StarStock, which is relatively new, and the newer participants in the hobby, doesn't that stir up a hornet's nest? And I'll shut up now.
Brad, I think that you're right. There will be people in the hobby that will find a way to poke negativity at this move by Vaynerchuk. There's no doubt about it. I mean, people find negative in everything, it seems. So yeah, that's going to happen. But the way I look at it is a bit different. I look at it as that family name, whether it's him, his brother, whoever it is, they've now invested in the infrastructure. That to me is a vote of confidence in the hobby overall. And I think that it should solidify, everybody needs to make money to live. Everybody needs to pay their bills, right? You want to set your family up, all those sorts of things. So there's no shame in trying to make money. And I think it's a vote of confidence for the hobby. I think that's a good thing.
Everybody always talks about FOMO, but the generations younger than me, or their fear isn't missing out; it's fear of being ignored. And so, if you're taking a position in something and people are against it, and some people are for it, that's not necessarily bad. The worst thing is if nobody cares and you're ignored. And the V brothers, as you say, are not being ignored. What they're doing is being watched, and we're going along for the ride. So it's making our category more and more relevant.
Yeah, I think there's a difference where, if Gary's out talking about or showing, PSA graded cards and buying them up, and then people, were getting on him, or, assuming that he's pumping and dumping, whatever. But I think this is more of a move of building an infrastructure for buying and selling, as opposed to, the purists. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I am out, and y'all have a
Hey,
fantastic
Brad,
afternoon.
I thought you were going to the show today.
No, not today. Not today. Today's my wife's got the honeydew list going on. So I went to the last show, and this is my makeup day for going to the show. I got this card, the hobby hotline I negotiated, and then it's all honeydew afternoon. So
All right, have a great one.
See you, Brad. What's next, Val?
That's what I'm looking here.
Guys, I got to make an announcement here. I think I'm going to have to change my wall. Some people have been microscoping my wall, and it won't be long before they identify every card on the wall. But that's just O's and P's and Q's and R's, and a little bit of S's. And so I'm going to shift it. Next time I'm on, I'm going to have a different panel to show, and then people can sharpshoot me on that. There's some people that have better eyes than I have.
I want to see some of those Richard Petty rookies.
Petty, he's in there somewhere.
Oh, awesome.
He might be
72 STP, I hope.
No, well, maybe. I mean, yeah, it's just one per player. So,
well, you guys were talking about record prices and stuff. So in NASCAR, let me show you, or not show you, but let me tell you that a signed 1972 STP, it kind of floored me, but it went for about $1,800. PSA DNA. So that's big for us. So I know these other sports go for, thousands, 10,000s, whatever, but NASCAR is cheap.
The beauty is if you bring in somebody from outside the hobby that loves all sports and considers, let's say, a big five, that NASCAR's in there, they're looking at that at this incredible bargain when they're reading about 1.8 million and then they read about 1.8 thousand, for the king.
Yeah, exactly. And massively difficult to find. So, they weren't available in packs and stuff. So the print run was minuscule compared to these other ones.
So are you saying there's opportunity in certain NASCAR cars right now that they're falling behind the curve of the overall hobby?
Well, I know the NASCAR purists will kill me, but they don't like anybody to talk about it because there's so much, I think, value and collectability.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, that's it. It's not really about the money. It's really trying to find them.
Yeah. I see a comment. NASCAR is 5. Does that mean hockey is 6? Soccer is over those. Hockey. I don't know.
Just being charitable for today with my esteemed co-panel. But soccer is 1A, or 1 in many of these other countries. But again, some of the old stuff in soccer, some of the old stuff in NASCAR, some of the old stuff in hockey is tough to find, much less in great condition.
Yeah, I think, the soccer is kind of, I guess, was it the national, I guess it was 2 years ago or the last national that we had that, they talked about soccer, and then with the World Cup coming and then stuff being delayed, that I think a lot of people have focused in on it, looking for that bump. So
Ziggy wanted us to talk about the changes at eBay.
Yeah, the return policy, right?
I believe, yeah, they were the Nicole Colombo, I believe her name is, from eBay, was on the Sports Card Investors virtual holiday this past week, and she announced a couple of changes. Unfortunately, I don't have those sort of really nailed down where I could articulate them myself on the show this morning, but they did announce a couple of things that seemed to be exciting to lots of people. So I got to leave it to someone else to describe what those were, but I think it's definitely a worthy topic for us to touch on.
Again, it's a distinction of our hobby that we're apparently strong enough to have a one-off deal between eBay, our category, and the United States Postal Service.
Oh yeah,
That is amazing to me. That there must be that just shows the clout of eBay and the clout of our industry.
It's a big, yeah. So that deal, I believe, is that now for any card valued $20 or under, you can get tracked shipping for like $1, which is unheard of. I mean, I can tell you up here in Canada, we're very jealous of that arrangement. If I send anything down to the US from here with tracking, it costs me about $18 minimum. It's not, and that through regular Canada Post. But there are other services that we can, there's a lot of services here that Ziggy says 75 cents, even better. There are services up here where they will do US they'll drive down to the US every day, down to Montana to mail your cards. But in any event, it's a big deal for eBay. Yeah, Jim, good point. Just the fact that eBay did a deal with the USPS is huge. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did not know that. That is amazing because, I hate having to, charge $3.49 or whatever it is for shipping, because the only way to get tracking before for these lower end cards was to bow mailer and with tracking, like I said, for the 3 something. So if we can go 75 cents, that's massive for the lower end market for these commons and stuff.
eBay had to go to the USPS, and it's not just current volume. They had to have projections that the future volume for a service like this would be so outrageous that it'd be worth it. Because if they're mailing 1 million, if collectors and if there's 1 million transactions like that a day, that's not going to move the UPS, the postal service's needle. But it could be millions a day of these individual, or I think you get 1, 2, 3 cards. A small number of cards in there. It's got to have a certain thickness and all that stuff. But they must really be thinking that what they've said, I think, in doing this deal is that 2020 is not an aberration. That 2020 is not even the new normal. It's the beginning of a new normal that has even greater volume in 2021 and going forward. And that's exciting. That eBay convinced the USPS that this category is taking off.
When I was on the virtual holiday on Sports Card Investor, I know you were too, Jim. I was on Wednesday night, and Jeff Wilson interviewed me for about 15, 20 minutes. And he asked me the question, what are you looking forward to most in 2021? And my automatic response was, Jeff, how do we top 2020? 2020 has been so crazy and awesome in the hobby. How do we top it? And I think we are going to, from a hobby perspective, I think we are going to top what we saw in 2020. And I followed it up with a comment that I'm just excited to watch. I'm excited to just be an observer and watch what unfolds in 2021. I mean, 2020 was it was like a shift in the hobby. It changed things, and I can't wait to see what 2021 holds. And if you're right, Jim, not you're right, but if what you're speculating they were thinking comes true, then, and I think I'm on side. It's going to be 2021 is going to be another great ride in the hobby. And with all these new big names coming in, and how does it go any other direction right now? Because of the influencers, and I don't mean just the social influencers. I mean the celebrity influencers that are coming in now, and we're going to learn about more and more of them as time goes by. I've heard rumblings of other people that are in the hobby that if they ever come out that they're in the hobby, some big things can happen. Some bigger things can happen because we've seen big things. So I'm very excited for this next year. Definitely.
Yeah. Hold on, guys. We have somebody in the room here.
Hey.
What's up?
Hey, big
Morning.
John.
What's up? Here's my walk. It's not as big as Dr. Beckett's. I got a lot of catching up to do. But he's talking about like shifting the camera to show different ones. Mine just goes on one screen. So, but and Brad's wife said I could come on the show too. So here I am. So, but morning. Going back to StarStock, it'll be interesting to see. I think we've learned as great as 2020's been in the hobby. There's going to be people complain just in general. So whether the Vaynerchucks are involved or not involved, people are going to either like something or, severely dislike something to the point of talking about it, posting about it, bashing it. And so, I don't think having a V brother involved is going to change. It'll change, if anything, like Dr. Jim said, I think it'll change it for the positive, but the negative stuff's going to be there whether AJ signed on or didn't sign on. And so, I'm going to be curious to see what their plans are to do with the investment money. Scott Greenberg's going to be on this week. It's definitely on my list of questions to ask is what that entails. And so we'll have to see what his response is. But they've made they used to sponsor my show, and Nigel Eccles has been on the program, and they've made a lot of they're doing well from what I can tell. And I've sell on that platform, and I can tell you I've sold quite a bit. So, and stuff I've sold on there, surprisingly, probably more. When I put it on there, I got actually more than I probably would have asked, let's say if it was on eBay or another platform, especially in the early going. It's sort of leveled, anything new, got a buzz to it. And, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I think any new, or not new platform, but adding more platforms to buy and sell, and depending on who they advertise to. So some people just go to eBay and buy and sell, and some people just go to Amazon and buy and sell. So if StarStock is a place where people just go, that's their first stop. My only thing is they don't sell racing or hockey. So.
Well, maybe they'll use some of this money to scale up, scale up their infrastructure. You got to think it's going to their technology infrastructure into marketing. That's usually where these sorts of raises tend to go to, and as they should. So, big things ahead. 2021 is going to be a transformational type of year. 2020 was, was this one-off thing that we've never seen before. We'll never see. I think next year is going to be more telling because we don't really know yet how the hobby will build off of 2020. So I think we're all bullish on it. 2021 is going to be very indicative to us of where this hobby is going in the long run. And what's the long run? Is it 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20? I'm not sure, but to me, it's more like that 10 to 20 year time horizon. And I know 2 years aren't going to tell us what's going to happen that far down the road, but it's going to set us up for the next while. And with people putting in millions of dollars into cards, and millions and millions of dollars into cards, they're going to want to find a way to ensure that these investments, and I know that word is not everyone loves it in the hobby, but it's just the where we're at. These investments are going to maintain their value into the long term. So 2021 is going to be a very interesting and important year to watch.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, Jeremy. What's going back to StarStock is are they going to expand their line? Is Val going to get to put some of his stuff on there? Right now they're all rookie cards too. Are they going to open up the gates to second year and any year cards? And that's been the biggest complaint that I've heard pertaining to them is, hey, obviously rookie cards usually are in most demand, but we've seen this year the rise of second year cards as well, and people would want to maybe go there while they're shopping for rookie cards and also get a second year cards, and they're unable. Maybe it might be an advantage to another platform that allows someone to do that. So I'm sure this is all discussions that they've had already behind closed doors as to future decisions and what we want to do. And, now they have $1.3 million to decide what they want to do, different things. And we'll see, and is there going to be another platform that tries to jump in 2021, speaking of next year, and throw their hat in the ring. We see it in the grading market. Companies try to kind of come in and get in the ring, and we're going to see more platforms. And at some point, they're all can't do well. I'll be honest with you. I'll say this. It'll be something I talked to Scott about. I thought StarStock was going to have more trouble getting a foothold than they did, but they had the right people in the right positions, and they made it. I mean, anything can change, but as of right now, they're doing well, and obviously expanding and getting some star power, no pun intended, behind the company's name. And what is who's next, I guess is the question.
There's more coming. We've seen the PSA business combination or that transaction. We're going to see more and more of these transactions, I believe. Brian Gray alluded to it on my show last week that, there's things going on that we just don't know about yet that we're going to be hearing about. So there's going to be more headlines, more takeovers, more buyouts, more of this and that, more like M&A activity, maybe more on the A side of things in terms of acquisition. So
it's way tougher to build a brand than to extend a brand. And so I'd be keeping my eyes on Nat Turner, because PSA has a huge platform, going to get a new lease on life. And if that deal goes down early next year, then all these things we're talking about are within range and sight of an expanded vision for PSA in terms of domiciling cards, fractional ownership, all the different and these day trading kinds of things. They have the cards, they have the money, and they're going to have new ownership that thinks big.
Yeah, we, as a PSA set registry person, I got a survey, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and you kind of read between the questions, and it was definitely about having a vault and being able to hold your cards there. And then so if you're holding them, well, it only makes sense to have another marketplace as well. So it's like Dr. Jim was saying the other day, if you can, if they can siphon off a couple of cents per dollar for a sale, then.
So you send your cards to PSA, you send in your grading fee, and then they say it's going to be a year wait, but we're going to put them in the vault and we're going to charge you for that.
Shouldn't they then just acquire PWCC because they have the vault in place?
I'm sure there's some discussions there,
probably.
But yes, because PSA is going to be the big dog, and so but what's keeping them from doing what PWCC is doing? Are they? It's like I say, building a brand is tough. Extending the brand, not as tough.
And PSA has a brand, so they could now just diversify a little bit more if they so choose. I'm sure you got to think these. Nat Turner's only 34 years old. It's actually mind blowing how young he is and where he's at in the hobby and just in his professional life. And so you got to think a guy like this has vision, and we're sitting here speculating. We're just armchair quarterbacks here. John, you'll like that one. We're just armchair quarterbacks here, and we have the benefit of enjoying speculating on these things. And I think we'll see some really cool stuff out of them and the rest of the hobby too. John made the comment: are there going to be more platforms that come out of the woodwork? Yeah, so I think of course there will be more selling platforms, buying platforms. StarStock is a rookie card only one. That's a nice niche for them. Are they going to scale up bigger and venture into other types of cards? Post rookie cards. I don't know. ComC handles all cards. They got millions of cards in their system. And I've seen people compare the two. I don't think it's a proper comparison. I think it's apples and oranges. They're doing different things. ComC is a volume sort of model, and they're pushing out HH overtime. They're handling so many. They're handling every card where StarStock is really just handling a few cards within the realm of the hobby. So they both have a great place in here, and I'm excited to see how they both evolve and what happens with them from an ownership perspective over time. You got to think ComC is a huge target right now as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I know Tim, he was working on a few innovations and stuff like that, and I don't think they've been, rolled out. So, um, I don't know, Dr. Jim could say, if you're standing still, you got a sight on you. ComC do with comic books and everything else, and they do. You can list everything there. So, as
Yeah.
opposed to Jeremy, what you said with StarStock, with some key cards. So, I definitely think we're gonna have more competition. I mean, more places to buy and sell, and I guess over time, everything will shake out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be 2021 is going to be a very exciting year for us to witness and be a part of this hobby. I mean, 2021 is what 2020 was as well, but we weren't anticipating it. We were as soon as the pandemic, showed its ugly face, and back in about mid-March when people started to realize this was something that was serious, I think most people in the hobby thought that this was trouble. This meant trouble for our holdings, our collection, the value of our collections. And I know that's what went through my mind. And the exact opposite happened. And I saw some comments. 1 million, I think it was 1 Million Cubs Project made the comment earlier in the chat that 2021 will be the peak. America reopens. We have short attention spans. And then he says, the decline begins in 2022. People will go back to their outdoor hobbies. I mean, fair take, but how sure are you of that? Because so many people were sure that, it seems like whatever we're sure of, the opposite happens. So I wouldn't put too much stock in any speculative, forward-looking statement right now.
Yeah,
it's
well,
tough to say.
Let me just make one more provocative statement, and then I think I got to go because I'm going to go to that show today. But Jeremy, what you raise is the issue that is in other financial markets of the possibility of selling futures. Because again, there may be some regulation. There's probably not regulation if you're dealing with a physical card, but selling someone the right to buy something that you hold. So it's not naked. You have it, and I'm willing to sell it to you for this price at this future point. That day could come because it's a more sophisticated approach to betting on the future that many of the commodities and things like that do.
I think it would. Jim, cool. I think that's an excellent prospective kind of thought you're having, because I think you're right. That day will come where we have puts and calls and all these things going on within our hobby, because the hobby, the business, it is moving more and more towards being like trading stock. We have so many opportunities to buy and sell these things now. They're very liquid. Fractional ownership is not new. It's just relatively new in the hobby. Why not move in that direction? You've got PWCC with their vault. That's a very powerful business model. If it scales, and I don't know that they're the ones to do it or who is, but if that model scales, we're going to see exactly what you're talking about. That's something you can almost guarantee, Jim, where the hobby is evolving.
The biggest vault in the hobby is called PSA's
waiting
room, and the second biggest is BGS's room with just which I've seen, which is cards and cards and cards. It's floor to ceiling. Okay, third is PWCC probably. Yeah, probably.
So I think the infrastructure is there or it's there, and it'll be developed and improved, and then we'll see more and more financial market type of activity in the hobby. We're seeing it already, but we're moving towards it. So because even a stock market, those actual shares are like controlled by the trust companies and the intermediaries. That's what ComC is in their vault. That's what the PWCC vault is, and that's what all these what additional vaults will become, because these cards are they are physical assets, whereas stocks nowadays are really digital assets that you just have to have a record of. So yeah, interesting times.
ComC probably has the third biggest vault, or maybe second, or maybe first. I don't know. They got an awful lot of cards somewhere up in Washington State.
Yeah, I think their average card value is much lower than PWCC's though. But yeah, volume wise for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I like Brad's comments as Rich's office is the 4th biggest vault.
I've been there too. It's one of the wonders of the collecting world.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I guess that's where we leave it. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts, so we'll let Dr. Jim get to the show.
Well, this one-day show that Kyle announced at the last minute after I'd already said I was going to do this, but I've really had a good time being with you, Val, and Jeremy, and a lot of great topics and a lot of great listeners and comments from the people. So again, it's a fun thing to do, this Hobby Hotline. I hope we continue to enjoy it.
Same sentiments from me, Val. Yeah, it was a fun morning. Always enjoy watching this show, appearing on it, calling into it, and great viewer comments and chat. And it's a nice way to wake up for me on a Saturday morning and have a cup of coffee and just chill out with you guys. So I really enjoyed this today. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys, and really enjoyed it. Thanks for everybody in the comments, folks that came on. Had a blast, learned a few things, and hopefully, everybody else learned a few things as well. So, and I guess we'll leave it there. May everybody's retail shelves be full.